Hey everyone, welcome back to Gamecasters, and in this video I will be covering the Necromancer Season 15 top build. Now, as usual, I will go ahead and say that no matter how many unrealistic amount of primals or whatever you see, the whole point of these videos are to show you the build itself. Now, these are just going through leaderboards and stuff and giving you guys an idea of what you'll need and showing you guys the gear that you'll need for these builds. The skills and the legendary gems, augments, and all that stuff. So I'm going to jump right in. Looking at Necromancer's current build, we're going for the Pestilence Master, which I believe is the Corpse Lance build, yeah. So, for your weapon, you'll be running Tragaul's Corroded Fang, which is going to have fire damage. I don't think the type of damage matters all that much on the weapon, at least. But damage, intel, crit hit damage, and intelligence from your augment. Tragaul's gives you the Curse Scythe rune for Grim Scythe, now has a 100% chance to apply a curse, and you deal 200% increased damage to cursed enemies. Reduce cooldown of all skills by 10%, and maximum essence. Now, running Necromancer, I ran this a couple seasons ago. Yeah, it doesn't show for last season, but this build runs heavily on cooldown reduction and your max essence. Those are your top two primary stats. After that is your damage and so on and so forth. This build definitely has the capability to kill things fast, but it's only when one of your abilities is active, or if there's corpses on the ground. So, using the bodies sparingly is, and situationally, it's a very strategic and time-based build. You have to know when to use your stuff and where to use it. But as for the Pestilence Masters set, you'll be getting from two piece. Each corpse you consume fires a corpse lance at a nearby enemy. Now this is where the damage comes from on this build. It is it's very good because one of your skills makes it where it doesn't require corpses to be on the ground for you to be firing corpse lances, so you just infinitely shoot corpse lances as long as it's active, and it kills everything fast. Actually, come to remember, it does rely heavily on cold damage because it has to do with slowing down your enemies. But with a 4-piece set, each enemy you hit with Bone Spear, Corpse Lance, and Corpse Explosion reduces your damage taken by 2% up to a maximum of 50%, and it lasts for 15 seconds. At a 6-piece bonus, each corpse you consume grants you an empowered Bone Spear charge that increases the damage of your next Bone Spear by 3,300%. In addition, Corpse Lance and Corpse Explosion damage is increased by 1,650. On the gloves, you'll have attack speed, crit hit damage, crit hit chance, intel, and reduce cooldown of all skills, like I said. Shoulders, intel from your augment, reduce cooldown of all skills by 7%. Chance to deal area damage on hit by 19% is what they rolled for, and Corpse Lance damage. On your chest piece, intel from the augment, and you'll be running 3, the name escapes me, the yellow gems. You guys know what I'm talking about here. Corpse Lance damage as your reroll. And your helmet, you'll be having a diamond with intel, crit hit chance, intel as your augment, and then reduce cooldown of all skills by 12.5%, which comes from the diamond. And you'll be running the Traveler's Pledge / Compass Rose bonus, as usual with most sets. Traveler's Pledge set gives you, while you're moving, damage taken is reduced up to 50%, and while standing still, your damage is increased by up to 100%. With your stats, you'll have damage, cold skill damage, crit hit damage, intel from your augment, and then Zai's Stone of Vengeance as your legendary gem. And I did remember correctly, it was cold skill damage because they re-rolled for that. Zai's Stone of Vengeance, damage you deal is increased by 14.72% for every 10 yards between you and the enemy hit, maximum of 73% increase at 50 yards. 20% chance to hit on stun the enemy for 1 second. and that's at a rank 134 legendary gem. So this person plays with a 4-man group, which I've seen the 4-man group in. I think they've pushed to 134 on the Greater Rift board at the moment, and we're still got a month left, so curious to see how far they go. For your bracers, you'll be running Nemi Bracers with cold skill damage, intel, bite, crit hit chance, intel from the augment, and this is what this build relies on. It is a elite pack hunter. Shrines and pylons will spawn an enemy champion. So whenever you find one of those, you'll more than likely be popping off your ability and killing that elite pack. And then you move on to the next pylon and you kill each elite pack as you go. It's heavily reliant on elite packs. Cold skill damage, cooldown reduction. Like I said, it's a very situational build. It's not a, I go anywhere and I kill everything, like Energy Twister or Condemn build can be. As your offhand, you'll have Lost Time with damage, intel, bite. Intel is your augment, and that gives you your cold skills reduce the movement speed of enemies by 30%, in addition to your movement speed is increased by 10% for 5 seconds. And you gain a maximum of 5 stacks with that. Reduce cooldown of all skills by 8%, max essence, and corpse lance damage. As usual, the max essence and cooldown, and then your corpse lance damage. As your other ring, Crisbin's Sentence, with attack speed, crit hit damage, intel as the augment, and then running a Bane of the Trapped legendary gem that increases the damage against enemies under the effects of control impairing effects by 55.50%. Gain an aura that reduces the movement speed of enemies within 15 yards by 30%, and you deal 100% increased damage against slowed enemies, or triple this bonus against enemies afflicted by any other type of control impairing effect. Which this build runs off of your curses and your cold skill damage, which cold skill slows down enemies when you have certain effects going off. So this right here makes a lot of sense for this build. Compass Rose will have intel, attack speed, crit hit damage, intel as your augment, and then Molten Wildebeest Gizzard. After not taking damage for 4 seconds, gain an absorb shield for 200% of your total life per second. Regenerates 142,000 life per second. With your socket, you'll have... the socket is your Molten Wildebeest Gizzard. I completely got sidetracked there for a second. And it looks like they just have 20% area damage on hit. They rerolled the crit hit damage. So yeah. For your boots, Pestilence Battle Boots with Intel, Bite, Armor, Life per second. Intel is the augment. And it looks like they rerolled Physical Resistance as their survivability stat. Pestilence Incantations, Intel, Bite, Armor, Intelligence is the augment. And rerolled Physical Resistance again. And your belt is Dainty's Binding. Intel, Vite, Life, Armor, Intel. And that gives you gain an additional 50% damage reduction when there's an enemy afflicted by any of your curses. So, as long as you have a curse active on enemies, you're taking 50% less damage. And that's all for the gear. I'll go ahead and go through the cubed items first so you know what you can swap out if you want to. So Relina's Shadow Hook is your weapon, Corpse Whisper Pauldrons as the armor, and Convention of Elements as usual for your ring. Relina's Shadow Hook, every point of maximum essence increases your damage by 0.5%, and Bone Spikes generates 5 additional essence for each enemy hit. Corpse Whisper Pauldrons, Corpse Lance damage is increased by 30% for 3 seconds when you consume a corpse maximum of 20 stacks. So while you have your one ability active, you're gaining 30% increased damage up to a 20 stack. So you're pretty much an insta-killer, which is why this build is super good for elite pack hunting. And then Convention of Elements, you gain 200% increased damage to a single element for 4 seconds. This effect rotates through all the elements available to your class in the following order: Arcane, Cold, Fire, Holy, Lightning, Physical, and Poison. Cold, I believe, is the one you're going to be targeting in that when you pop it, so be looking for that proc. As for your skills, Devour, Cannibalize, Corpse Lance with Brittle Touch, which adds to the cold skill damage, Decrepify, Borrowed Time, Simacrolum, Reservoir, Revive, Oblation, I can never figure out how to say that word, so forgive me if I've butchered that word, Land of the Dead, and Frozen Lands. Now, Simacrolum, I believe, is the one that you'll pop, and while it's active, you don't actually have to consume corpses on the ground. It just makes it where you can just use it. And then for your passives, you have Final Service, Blood is Power, Overwhelming Essence, and Spreading Malediction. Now, I'm going to run through a couple other people up here just to make sure if there's any options you guys have for changing up this build. Gear is all the same as usual. Devour have satiated on it from this person. Molting on Blood Rush. Everything else looks the same. Standalone is a different passive that you have an option. And as usual, like I said, this person has alternated the Crisbin Sentence for the Convention of Elements because they got a primal of that. So that falls into place with how I said you can alternate your cubed items depending on which one you get the better version of. I'm going to look through here. This person's also running standalone, so that seems to be a popular one. Satiated. And the molting one on Blood Rush, so that seems to be a popular choice as well. And this person has Purgatory on Revive. Everything else seems to be similar. Gear is all the same. And I'll go to the fifth person just to be sure. Crisbin Sentence, Compass Rose. Looks like, yeah. So your options are kind of limited, which is fine because you don't have to worry about like running anything wrong and finding out something else is way better or anything. It's an easy switch up. So that is the Necromancer Corpse Lance build for Season 15. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. And if you have any suggestions, let me know as well. Hit the subscribe and the bell if you'd like to be notified when I upload new videos. I'll be keeping you guys updated throughout the seasons. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.